Oh.
Very good. All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me for this very important update that I'd like to deliver on the county finances and budget. For the last several months, our collective goal and top priority as a county government has been the health, safety, and well-being of our community. But with this has come an incredible financial burden that we have already begun to address and will continue to assess in the weeks and months to come. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented challenges to every sector of our region, effectively shutting down our local economy and everything that comes with it. This reality has impacted residents, families, businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout the community, and it's impacted our county government finances too. So I want to provide that update. I'm going to share a presentation. Okay. So when I provided an initial budget forecast 3 weeks ago, Monroe County was at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. We were just beginning to grapple with the incredible impact it was having on our economy and the revenue streams that we depend on to ensure that county government is functioning to meet the needs of our residents. Early projections pegged our deficit between $68 and $122 million. And those projections were made up of large losses across several revenue streams, as well as state aid, as you can see laid out in this chart. Since that time, the first local financial indicators of the economic fallout of COVID-19, the April sales tax receipts, have become available. And when you look at both overall receipts and the county share of those receipts, they show a drop of around 25% as compared from April of 2019 to April of 2020. That big drop puts us about 1.42% behind where sales tax receipts were at this point last year. The reason being that the first quarter of this year, we had sales tax receipts that far outpaced sales tax receipts of this time last year by 7%. So with the fall off in sales tax receipts from April to April, combined with the higher sales tax receipts from the first quarter of the year, so far we're down about 1.42% in those receipts. But with this data also comes an opportunity to better refine our forecast and provide an updated look at where our losses might be. As a result of what we've seen so far, we've adjusted our projected sales tax revenue shortfall to be between $12.8 million and $22.5 million, which is a lower estimate, but still a significant hit to our county finances and to our bottom line. These figures here, along with an unchanged projection and reductions in hotel motel tax, fee revenue, and state aid, has resulted in updated deficit estimates of between 46 and $81.5 million, which is a little bit more manageable than the original projection, but is still quite burdensome and is still a concern for us here at the county. So this is what we're doing. To start, we have instituted and I have ordered a temporary non-essential hiring freeze and an essential hiring delay for over 400 vacant positions throughout county government, creating a $19.5 million in appropriation reserves for salaries and benefits for salaries and benefits. Many of these positions have been vacant since the beginning of the year, and we are going to continue to leave many of these unfilled positions as they are to reduce the projected salary and benefit costs at an estimated savings of $19.5 million. I also directed each of my department heads to identify 3% across the board mid-year budget reductions that we have begun to analyze, and we have put appropriation reserves on $12.6 million of those reductions across the county. We are also delaying or eliminating $10 million in cash capital projects. Some of those projects includes the purchasing of vehicles and equipment. We've put a hold on those, delayed improvements to various county waste treatment plants, and postponed system automations for projects including Monroe County libraries. We're also cutting $1 million in existing budget reserves, which we put on our budget at the beginning of the year. Budget reserves would impact things like supplies, materials, things of that nature. We also have identified and will eliminate the $2 million solid waste subsidy from the general fund, which are funds that are used to help pay down deficits and make them a shorter deficit reduction time period. And then we've also were able to reduce our subsidy of Monroe Community Hospital by the general fund by roughly $2.5 million. We were able to do that also in thanks large part to the CARES Act, as the CARES Act did provide dollars to Monroe Community Hospital that can be used to offset revenue shortfalls, but also dollars as part of the $129 million that we received as the county can pay for some expenses at Monroe Community Hospital. So we were able to save $2.5 million from that fund as well, bringing our total right now appropriation reserves to $47.6 million, which is just above what we think the bottom end of the range of the potential projected revenue shortfalls may be. So as you can see from the appropriation reserves that we've implemented so far, we are not taking this situation lightly and have already initiated these reductions in cost savings as we prepare for the worst, but continue to hope for the best. I believe that we've effectively identified areas of savings, and here I'll pull this off here real quick. I do believe that we have identified areas of savings that to help close the budget gap, and we are within the lower end of the projected deficit and stand ready to make additional further adjustments. Unfortunately, we still don't know the full extent of the impacts that COVID-19 pandemic has had on our local economy, and we might not know for several months to come. In many ways, though, as we come together as a community to stop the spread of the virus and save lives, there still remains a lot of uncertainty surrounding where we go from here. In the coming weeks and months, we'll continue to gain a better understanding of the fiscal challenges that lie ahead, allowing us to narrow the projected range of our shortfall. We will also continue the hard work of identifying other areas of potential savings and reductions should the need present itself. Earlier this week, I joined Congressman Joe Morelli and other local leaders to call for the passage of federal legislation that would allow state and local governments and school districts to use CARES Act funding to cover revenue shortfalls as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Being able to utilize these federal funds to offset our projected deficit would be a game changer for the residents of Monroe County. I remain hopeful that the county and our local partners will be able to access these funds to provide continuity of these critical services our community relies upon, our social services, our teachers, our police forces, and so many others. But relying on hope and counting on those funds would be irresponsible. So as I've outlined today, Monroe County is taking decisive actions and making tough decisions to minimize costs and overcome these budget hurdles so that we can continue to provide our residents with the essential services that they need. So with that, I can take any questions that the media may have.
Okay, we're going to start with Tanner Jubenville from 13 Lamb, followed by Sean Lehman from the Democratic Chronicle.
Hi, good afternoon, Adam.
Good afternoon.
First one is, I guess we kind of double faceted. I mean, what are you expecting for May in terms of sales tax revenue? And I mean, do you think the reopening will have some impact on it or lessen the impact?
Yeah, so we do think that things are going to start to rebound somewhat over the next several months, but clearly not to the level that they were before, which is why we're still projecting a negative result from last year to this year in terms of our sales tax receipts. And we're still budgeting a fairly substantial decrease year to year. I am remaining hopeful and optimistic that as we move through the phases of reopening this economy, that sales tax receipts will start to come in and they will start to rebound somewhat, but we're obviously not going to be in the same position as we were last year, which is why I think it was prudent to start to take these budget reserve measures today, because we know there's going to be, that it's not going to get back to where it was for the balance of the year.
Do you have a
Do you have a
follow-up?
follow-up?
Yes. I guess I know you obviously the priority is essential services, but with these cuts, what might residents not be seeing that might be normally there?
Sure.
I'm just in terms of parks, and as well as other areas, I guess, what might people notice?
Yeah, and so these cuts are these spending reductions are going to impact pretty much every facet of county government. A lot of the positions that we're going to continue to be vacant and hold vacant are vacant today and have been vacant for some time. So we're going to delay hiring them. But you are going to see longer lines. It's going to take at service delivery points. It's going to take longer to process forms in the parks, environmental services, and transportation. To be perfectly honest with you, it's going to have a delay in a lot of things. A lot of the programs, not really programs, a lot of the equipment that we're purchasing, it's a lot of supplies, equipment, things like that are being put off. But you are going to see a delay in how we fix things. At a park, if something is broken, a door is broken, a bench is broken, something like that, it may not get fixed right away. The pothole that exists or paving on a street may not get fixed next week or as quickly as we'd like it to be. And that's just the hard reality of the choices that we have to make to deal with such a significant projected budget shortfall.
Thank you, Tanner. Sean Lehman from the DNC is next, followed by Philip Bordeaux from Spectrum.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm just wondering when you think you'll have a sense for what revenues from May look like, and at what point will you have to take a hard look at how long the loss of sales tax revenue and hotel tax revenue is going to impact the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think, when we get into about the middle of June, we'll have then be able to look at what happened in May. And I think that's where we're going to start to see what the impact, but it really won't even still be the full impact of going through the reopening phases, because we're really just starting phase one, only about a weekend. And so it'll be middle of June, we'll start to see what May was. Middle of July, we'll be able to see what June was. So we'll be able to monitor that carefully. And then we'll also know, I think, a lot more information by the end of June about what the consensus is in Washington about additional federal aid that may be going to the state and local governments. I think that, my sense is there's some consensus forming in Washington that additional dollars are going to have to go to state and local governments. How restricted or unrestricted those funds are remains to be seen, and how much they are remains to be seen. But we should know more about that by the end of June, because at the end of the day, too, New York State runs at a somewhat different fiscal year than a lot of other states around the country. A lot of states around the country run on fiscal years that start in July. So the real pressure, I think, in Washington is going to be growing and mounting over the next several weeks. And I think we'll start to see more movement there, or at least more clarity as to what's coming there. But the steps that we announced today is steps we've already started to implement, because I don't want to wait on the other come here that we might get more money, so we should just wait. We do have to start taking, that would be irresponsible. We have to start taking action now, and then remain hopeful and optimistic that additional help and resources will be coming. That also relates to the state aid. There's a significant state aid reduction that's included in our projections here. But again, if the federal government provides additional aid to states, to state governments, that would reduce that state aid reduction that we could be missing.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Philip Bordeaux from Spectrum, and then whoever is on from WHEC.
So basically my question is, I saw that you guys were basically talking about maintaining essential services. Will the county be able to invest in any new projects this year?
Well, we are, that's part of, the delay that we're gonna have on a lot of these cash capital projects that we have. And there's no question that there's a lot of priorities that I want to invest additional resources in, that were part of, my campaign to be here, why I want to be county executive, that are going to be put on hold for a little while. So there is going to be some short-term pain. We've managed to be able to do this and find enough efficiencies in the budget and enough reserves on our appropriations so that it won't impact real critically needed programs. The Department of Public Health will continue to have the resources it needs to manage the COVID-19 crisis. Our law enforcement personnel will continue to have what they need to protect this community. But at the end of the day, a lot of the capital projects, equipment purchases, things of that nature are going to have to be put on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, do we have a reporter on from WHEC?
Yes, it's Patrick Moosenack. How's everyone doing?
Hi, Patrick. It's nice to see you.
Same here. County Executive, you mentioned, and I caught it a little late, but you mentioned the CARES Act. How much money is available from the CARES Act to put towards the budget shortfall?
Sure. So Monroe County received about $129 million in CARES Act funding. So far, we've spent or committed around $10 million of those funds. And we're continuing, but the issue with those funds is that it's very restrictive in how you can use it. You have to follow very tight, narrow guidelines that we're following, and they can only be used to offset expenses directly related to your response to COVID-19. It cannot be used to make up shortfalls in revenue.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Randy Boardman from WSXI, and Kevin O'Clubja from Rochester Business Journal will be after him.
Adam, how are you, sir?
Hi, Randy. Nice to see you.
Great. Just a quick two-part question. I know it's early in the budget year, so to speak, but are you making any commitment yet on whether you think you'll have to raise taxes in the next budget for next year?
We are making these significant spending reductions and spending reserves right now so that we don't need to do that. That's part of what being responsible right now in this budget year is all about. So we are gonna make these spending reserves commensurate with what we think the decrease in our revenue projections will be.
So again, I don't know if you want to say never, but you're right now you feel pretty comfortable that you can make the cuts you need to keep taxes from going up.
Correct.
Okay. And second part, you talked about reductions in capital projects, other areas, and freezing payroll. Would you have to think about laying off any county employees, not just vacant positions, but actual people who are employed right now?
That's a good question. So we managed to freeze or delay for the hiring and filling of 400 positions across county government. And we did that without doing any layoffs or furloughs. These were through attrition, and they were through positions that were vacant and became vacant over the course of several months, or vacant when I got here back in January. So we've been managing that for the last several months. And we'll just continue to manage that going forward to make sure that we have enough positions open to meet that funding threshold.
So you don't anticipate any layoffs right now?
Right now, we don't have layoffs are on the table right now. No, we feel like we've identified enough appropriation reserves to meet what we think that the drop off in revenue will be right now. But obviously, we don't know what the future is going to hold. So we don't know what the picture will look like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months from now. But we'll continue to evaluate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
You're welcome.
Kevin O'Clubja from Rochester Business Journal, and then Atia Collins from WRIC.
Hey, Adam, sorry you can't see me. I'm incognito.
All right, Kevin.
Randy had actually touched on or asked about the layoffs, which I was concerned about. Would the public notice positions that aren't filled right now, and what type of those positions are open and being held open?
Yeah, so you're going to see there's positions across the county government that are still open. And like I said, one of the things that you're going to notice is as the county services turn back on, as you start to see more and more people, we're moving about, we're opening up in the phases, we're not going to have that commensurate staffing up to handle that flux right now. So you're going to see longer lines at the various service points. It's going to take a little bit longer to do some maintenance efforts. I mentioned fixing a park bench or fixing a broken door, fixing something like that. It's just going to take a little bit longer to be able to do. We get a lot of applications for things, a lot of paperwork come in. It might take a little bit longer to do that because we're going to be operating with the current staff that we have available now and at the current staffing levels that we have. So what you see and what the public is experiencing with our current staffing levels is what we'll have going forward for the time being.
And just to follow up quickly, is there a way to, online that people can at least avoid those lines? It might not get processed any faster, but at least they wouldn't be standing in a line. Are you encouraging that? Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. We have a number of things that can be done online at monroecounty.gov. There's a number of programs, particularly in our social service department, where they're not doing it. The need for face-to-face interviews has been put off for several more weeks still by executive order, maybe put off into the future beyond that. A lot of things can now be applied for in that department online or even over the phone or by mail. So we would still encourage you to go there and look at all those different application options. I know other departments, the county clerk's office, they've moved to an online recording system for real estate recording, an electronic filing system for most civil court matters can all be done electronically. So, that's something interesting that just in general that I think that this pandemic has done is it's caused a lot of business across agencies, not just in the government, to start thinking about how you can do more work or continue to do the work you're doing, but do it remotely. And I think that you're starting to see a lot of that creativity happen in a lot of different facets. So, but the county government is the same. And if you go to our website, right on our homepage at monroecounty.gov is a list of all the various resources that we have available and how you can access them remotely.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Jeff Collins from WROC and Patty Singer from Minority Reporter. You're up next.
Good afternoon, County Executive Bello. My question, a lot of the good ones were taken, so I will ask, can you talk to me about the process of coming to these reductions? And we talked a lot about how it will affect people. Why were these the best choices?
Now, that's a great question, actually. So we've been meeting on this for the last several weeks and months, really since the beginning of this, meeting very regularly with our finance team and working with our department heads to identify budget reserves that we could place within their departments. And really the thought process was, where can we first go to look at holds that we could place on spending that would have the least amount of impact on programs and services that benefit and directly impact residents in the community. Because one of the things that I'm keenly aware of, and those who are real intimately involved with county government know, is that we're the level of government that provides that resources to individuals who might be the most impacted by COVID-19, whether it be economically. We have the Department of Public Health. So through all those different departments, we actually provide that backup to them. And it's service, child daycare funding, support comes to us, the ability to coordinate and collaborate with daycare centers to make sure that we can figure out what the vacancies are. All of that comes through county government and flows through us. So what we tried to do was look for places that we could hold back spending, but not impact those critical programs, so that as the effects of COVID-19 and the economic slowdown particularly play out over the next several months, we can keep those programs in place as long as possible and try to put that off. But that's also why this additional funding from the federal government is just so critical, because at the end of the day, if we start finding ourselves on the high end of what those reductions are, we're going to have to continue to dig deeper, and we're not going to be able to avoid those program cuts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Patty Singer from Minority Reporter, and then Gino Pinelli from City Newspaper.
Hey, I've got a two-parter as well here. So I want to make sure I'm understanding the context of this. It seems as though right now Monroe County is better off than what you had projected a few weeks ago, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so things aren't as bad as they could be. So, but that being said, with the cuts you've had to make, how are those cuts affecting that transition report that you accepted in February that laid out the blueprint for the county? And I'm thinking particularly things like economic and community development and human services. Where's the casualties in that report?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Patty. And yet, what I'd say is it's less bad, but it's still not great. Our financial picture. Really, the only thing that's changed between 3 weeks ago and today is our projections on sales tax, because that's something that's a hard number we can look at, and we have data now. Before we were projecting, just to get my notes, it was a 22 to 38% decrease in sales tax, which was in line with what a lot of economists and projections were at. Today, we're down to an 8.1 to 14% decrease because we're now starting to see what those numbers are, and we're starting to open up the economy now, which wasn't necessarily clear 3 weeks ago where we would be. So we've made those adjustments. And so, like I said, so if you go back in through the transition report, there's a lot of things that we talked about investing additional dollars in. The fight against the opioid crisis, which is taking far too many lives in our community and has actually seen a recent spike. We just passed legislation last month or the month before, is bipartisan legislation I'm incredibly proud of, that passed my plan to increase our resources into the opioid crisis, to hire an opioid response team, to create an addiction director, to really tackling it to the bottom, into the heart of this problem. We haven't been able to really move forward on that yet because we did the resource constraints that we're under. I want to make additional investments in early intervention programs. We want to make additional investments in how we spend social service dollars to make sure we're not just putting money out there in silos, we're connecting the money, leveraging money against each other to help lift families out of poverty. We have economic development programs that we want to do, but a lot of those are going to be on hold. Right now, we haven't cut any programs this year with these funding reductions that are going to directly impact our residents, but creating additional programs is really just not an option at this point until we see what type of funding allocations we're going to receive from the federal government.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Patty. Finally, we do not have Gino, we have Jeremy Rule from City Newspaper.
Jeremy, it's nice to hear from you.
Hey, Adam.
There, I don't get to see you. I just get to hear you.
Always takes me a minute to find the mute button.
Yeah.
It sounds like one of the things I'm hearing, it sounds like the sales tax projection has improved for the county, but it also, there's no guarantee that it's going to continue on that path. If the sales tax doesn't improve the way you'd like to see, what happens?
Yeah, so what happens is we make further appropriation reductions moving forward. We have to live within our means. And if we don't receive additional support from the federal or state governments, then we're going to have to dig deeper. So we think what we have right now is a reasonable plan forward. I briefed both caucuses of the county legislature and had a conversation with them about this. And I think that right now we're on the right path. One thing I was not going to do was just wait and hope. We do have to take action now. So we took action to reserve some of the appropriations that were budgeted. And we're going to continue to monitor this. We do this every day. We have meetings every day. We look at where we are in the budget, where we are in our revenues that are coming in from other sources. We'll make those adjustments. You know, I'll also put it this way. Sales tax, even if it doesn't rebound, and that's the one projection we made a difference on so far, but if it does not rebound the way it is, we might have to change that projection. But in the meantime, we may also get additional support from the CARES Act funding to cover revenue losses. So it's not always going to be a one-for-one relationship. The other thing we're going to look hard and carefully at is federal support of state governments. And how much additional aid that the state of New York gets. Governor Cuomo's been fighting very hard in Washington and advocating for additional aid. That aid is directly tied into how much state funding reduction we're going to receive. Because at the end of the day, the state government's facing the same challenges we are. We have to balance our budgets. I used to be a town supervisor, and as a town supervisor, you have to zero out your budget at the end of the year, your expenses and revenues. As a county government, we have, as a county executive, have to do the same thing. We have to zero our budget. The state government operates the same way. The federal government oftentimes borrows and can operate at a deficit. The county, the state, and the towns cannot. Our school districts are struggling as well. They're also relying on sales tax revenue. One thing, though, that I will point out that's a little different between us and other counties, and it's also why our projected revenue potential losses are so much, have gone down dramatically in the last 3 weeks, just looking at the sales tax revenue. But then if you compare us to other counties, it's a little different because we share more sales tax revenue with our sharing partners, with the city of Rochester, our towns, villages, and school districts than most of the other counties, our peer counties around the state. There's good and there's bad news. Good news is that that helps to support the operation and take the pressure. It helps support the operation and take the pressure off the property tax and other forms of revenue for those sharing partners. The good news is also that we're not, as a county, we're not as reliant on property tax dollars as part of our budget as some of the other peer counties. So other counties around the state are facing a somewhat higher revenue shortfall because they're more dependent on sales tax dollars. We are more dependent on property tax dollars, hotel, motel tax, other sources of revenue. So the good news is the budget deficit is not as severe as some of our peer counties, but I'll go back, I think I might have mischaracterized it. The bad news though is that because we share so much with our sharing partners, they're all feeling the pinch as well. So I'm hearing from town supervisors, school superintendents, village mayors, the mayor of Rochester, about their funding shortfalls as well. And that's why earlier this week, I did a press conference with Congressman Morelli to call on the federal government to change how we can spend the CARES Act money to help address revenue shortfalls so that we can then help our local government partners with our $129 million CARES Act allocation. We can take a portion of that allocation and be able to help some of our sales tax sharing partners make up for some of their revenue loss as well.
Great. And then just to follow up, there was a term you've used that I haven't heard before that I want you to explain for me. It's the appropriation reserve. I mean, does that just mean that because you're not filling those positions, you're saving money, or is it more complicated than that?
No, that's essentially what it is. Basically what we do is we go into the budget and you put a reserve, which means that we put a hold on those, the appropriation is like an expense. So we put a hold on that expense so you can't do it. So we have a hold right now on 400 positions, roughly equating to about $19.5 million. I put a reserve onto that and we will manage that carefully. So that we continue to have that. You put a reserve, for instance, there's $1 million across the board reserve that we did earlier this year. It should not doesn't increase, it doesn't impact each department equally, but we did $1 million reserve that's largely on supplies, things of that nature. And so essentially the department had, all the departments in aggregate had about $1 million reserved out of their budget that they couldn't touch or couldn't spend. So it's still in the county budget until you go and amend the county budget through the county legislature process. It's there, but we can place budgetary reserves that would essentially take it out of that department's discretion to spend those dollars.
So basically, it's just saying that.
Yeah.
So basically, it's just this is money in the budget, and you're saying we're not spending that money that's in the budget.
Correct. Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, much quicker way of describing that than me. But that's exactly right. Yes. Okay, so thank you all again very much. I appreciate you joining me today. I think that being transparent about the county's budget process, about where we are in the budget, is incredibly important for all of our government partners, for the community and the public at home, to understand how COVID-19 is impacting that operation. We spend a lot of time talking about the public health implications of COVID-19. We do daily, almost daily media, press conferences, press releases. We do our daily dashboard. But this is something that we're also working incredibly hard in my team here at the county office building to make sure that we're taking the necessary actions now today too to protect property taxpayers around the county from the negative impact that this could have on the county budget. So we're taking those actions now. We'll continue to review those into the future. And the one thing too I'd like to just throw out here at the end is that as we re-enter the phases in the opening of the economy, and we start going through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. How that is managed and how successfully we do that is going to be entirely reliant on how this community responds and our ability to continue participating in social distancing and wearing masks when we can't be outside of 6 feet of people around us. I want to thank this community and for their participation in this. We've made a lot of sacrifices. Everybody here has made a lot of sacrifices over the last 2 months, both economic and personal sacrifice. And as we move through this reopening, we do not want to undo all those sacrifices we made. We want to be able to reopen. We want to do it safely. We want to do it responsibly. And it's up to us how that happens. So as we do this, I'm asking you, please continue to wear your masks when you're within 6 feet of anybody around you. Please reduce gatherings to less than 10 people. And please try to keep that social distance of 6 feet apart. If we can do that as we go through these openings, then my hope and expectation would be that we can continue to manage the public health crisis that we face. We can continue to manage the results of the public health as it comes to the spread of the disease, prevent the overwhelming of the hospital systems, and be able to continue opening it up. I don't think it's just a coincidence or happened accidentally that our region was one of the first regions designated to begin that opening process. We're part of the leading edge of the reopening in New York State because our community made that sacrifice, because we came together, we took COVID-19 seriously, we managed the spread within our community, and we also worked together to mitigate a lot of the impacts. Our elected officials came together across geography and political parties to work together to manage this across municipalities. Our school districts came together on a regular basis to manage how they would close 2 months ago and now how they may be looking to reopen in the months to come. Our hospital systems, we have 2 great, fantastic systems have come together to coordinate and manage how they're treating patients in our area and how they're going through the opening process, how they've been able to expand testing in our area so we can have more testing, a more accurate reflection of where we are in the spread, and then we can also hit our opening metric. And just across our nonprofit community, coordinated through the United Way, with our nonprofits, our community-based organizations coming together, working together to coordinate their activities so FoodLink can maximize its distribution of food, so that we can distribute masks, millions of masks distributed over the last couple of weeks across this community. And it's because we're all working together in ways that I don't believe other regions are. I have some insight and have some relationships in other regions around the state, and I know that we are far and above collaborating in ways that other places are not, and I want to thank the community for that. And I would also like to just remind folks about the symptom tracker that we have at rockcovid.org. You can sign up to provide just your zip code, age, gender, race, and ethnicity. You can sign up to track your symptoms every day so that the health professionals and hospital systems have a greater understanding of real-time data of symptoms that are spreading throughout the community, so that we can also have that real-time look at the impact that the reopening phase is having and other things, so that they can adjust accordingly. Over 15,000 people have signed up to date for this, and it's so easy to do. It's at rockcovid.org. It takes about 45 seconds to sign up, and it takes about 10 seconds a day to report your symptoms. But for that small investment of your time, it makes an incredible, valuable tool for the public health professionals here to track and manage the spread of the disease. It will help us get through this on the other side as quickly but as safely as we possibly can. So thank you very much. God bless you. Have a great